What happens when we die? Is there an afterlife? Do we go to heaven? Or even worse, hell? Can we communicate with the dead? And if we can, should we? Let's find out.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 21 of Pedro Paranormal. I am here as always with my co-host Carlos.
Hey,
and I am your host Tony. Today's episode we're going to be doing, I think this is one of the episodes that I had the most fun, doing the research and watching movies about. This is going to be about vampires. So we're going to be talking not just about the films, but also about the origins. Where did the story of Count Dracula or just vampires in general, where did it come from? And how did I think one of the persons we're going to be talking about a lot is going to be Bram Stoker, since he is very famous for that book that he wrote back in when did he write that book? Was it back in 1800s, right?
Somewhere around back there.
Yeah,
so involved with the movies. It should be a long time ago.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get this. Let's get this party started. Let's get this episode started. Carlos,
Yes.
Did you do any research on the history of vampires, or you just straight out just watch movies?
I just try to watch movies. I did a little bit of YouTubing and a little bit of reading on a certain specific type of origin, but not the origin that you're talking about, how he was written in the books and so forth.
Oh, okay.
But mostly the religious thing, which I want to get into later on.
Yeah. Well, the whole vampire, the vampires, not Dracula, but the vampire thing. This actually has a lot of there's a lot of stuff online about the history or stories, folklore, of where these vampires come from or what they are. But one of the things that I found really interesting was that in the Jewish, there's a book, I forgot what the book is called. We should start taking notes for for these episodes. But anyways, there's this book that it's called the Jewish Book of Law, and there's a story in there about Adam and Eve, how they believe that Eve wasn't the first woman. It wasn't Adam's first wife. There was another wife previous to Eve called Lilith, and this woman, I guess she challenged Adam to be like an equal to him.
Right.
She was like, I want to have the same the same rights like you and do everything like you. And Adam was like, I don't think so, and he kicked her to the curb.
Right.
But so what happened was this the first wife, she ended up leaving because she wasn't happy with him, and then Adam met Eve, and they had children. But then Lilith came back, but she came back already in a form of a monster, like a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And that she would she would scare Eve and their children, and she drank blood and stuff. But I mean, I don't know how true that is. But I found that pretty cool.
Yes, that's a very cool piece of research, and I know you haven't seen the show, but True Blood actually talks about this character called Lilith, and they actually bring her out on the show as like part of the season finale for one of the seasons, and it's pretty cool scenes. I think you should watch that show because it does talk about the religious aspect of that, and I'm kind of happy you mentioned that.
Nice. And what's funny? We actually before filming this episode, we talked about what we were gonna watch, and I'm kind of happy we did, because now we kind of like went our own way. So now we and we haven't like talked about what we researched. So now we kind of could combine our information together. But that's cool. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that. I've never watched True Blood, but I do know that there's a lot of people that like that show, because I have friends that actually watch it. Is that show already over, or is it?
It's already over. So
Okay.
it had a few seasons, and I vaguely remember the ending. I think I might have missed out on that, but I talked to my brother just recently. He said it was a pretty good ending to the show.
Okay.
He was very satisfied with it. But I really did fall in love with the characters. I fell in love with the situation that they're in. But going back to Lilith, a lot of people talk about not just Lilith being one of the first vampires, but they also briefly mentioned that some of these other characters, for example, Cain, from Cain and Abel, he could have been a vampire too, because he committed the first murder, right? The first act of sin or so.
Yeah.
And going back to this whole religious thing, I think I should just get out of the way now. This part of the segment is the whole story behind Judas from the Bible. That supposedly he was one of the first vampires too.
The traitor?
Judas the traitor, yeah. How do you pronounce his name? Judas Iscariot?
Yeah.
And he sold out Jesus for with 30 gold pieces of silver. And he tried to return that money after Jesus was captured, right? He tried to return that money, but they said, no, I don't want it. So he just tossed it. And getting rid of the silver, he went over to go see Jesus on the cross. And by this time, the sun was coming down, and he was just so distraught that right at the last sunset, he hung himself. So pretty much that was his the last time that he saw actual light. And because of that, he was cursed to walk the earth with no soul, never able to see daylight again. And pretty much that's the reason why he hates crucifixes, and that's one of the reasons why he hates silver, is because the 30 pieces and the insignia of God in the crucifix.
Okay. So they believe he became a vampire after he died?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've never heard about that.
Yeah, that he never actually hung himself. Well, actually hung himself, but he actually never died. That he came back and as the undead. And,
yeah, because
I think if you want to read more about that, there's actually a monk, the monk called Ed or Aed, Aed or Ed, that in 843 AD he wrote the book of Agula, and right there shows that pretty much the story that I just told you about Judas becoming a vampire or cursed to walk the earth until the final days.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I remember that he tried to hang himself, right? And in the Bible, it says that I guess the rope or whatever he was using snapped, and then he fell, and then like his guts came out or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And well, I didn't mention that part, but yeah, he hung himself. He tried to kill himself, but I guess by that time he was half dead, half alive.
Oh, okay.
That's what usually happens when you become a vampire, right? You're giving a choice, right?
A vampire like this guy next to me right here. Yeah, but the whole thing, that another thing that I found out about vampires was that this was actually a real thing that people actually, they had like a, what do you call it when everybody starts freaking out about something, like a panic. There was a big panic, and this was back, I think it was like the 1400s, where they actually believed that the people were coming back from the dead and attacking people and drinking their blood and stuff. And what I found interesting was that the reason they thought that these people were drinking blood was because when they would go and dig them out of the tomb, out of the grave, they would have blood around their mouth, the dead bodies. And this was because I guess back then they wouldn't take all your insides out like they do now. So what happened was you would start to decompose, and some of the blood would come out of your mouth, and that's how they explain it now. But back then, they didn't know about all this stuff. So they would see that they were kind of plump and with blood around the mouth, so they thought they were coming back and drinking people's blood.
That's a fun fact. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know what? That was one of the reasons why they started using this guy here, Carlos. The wooden stake, right? Because this is one of the weapons to get rid of vampires. But that was one of the reasons that this was used, because what happened was I don't know if you would call, I guess it was in Catholics back then, right? It was called something else, the Christianity or whatever. They came up with what are the things that would if vampires were real, what could you do to protect yourself? And this was one of the things they came up with, because they would use the stakes, but made out of oak, which was what the cross is made out of.
Right. Denser wood too, a stronger, denser wood.
Yeah, and what's funny, in the movies I always thought that they would use this to to stab it into the heart, and that's what killed the vampire. But in the the original story, they use these because they figured if they could put this into you and anchor you down to your what is it, the coffin,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to get up. So it wasn't to go through the heart, it was just to anchor you down.
Right.
So I found that pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're putting the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. So that's where this thing comes from.
That is so cool.
But you know what? They had a lot of stuff. They had the whole the garlic, and this I don't know what this I don't know why they would say that garlic, you know, kept vampires away. And of course you have the famous crucifix, you know.
Right.
But yeah. But
so it brings another question: why are these vampires out, and why do they hunt?
Yeah.
The flesh.
Well, supposedly a lot of the times it was because some of these people, they were just, I guess they thought they were just evil, and they wanted like to cause corruption and you know, all that stuff. So I guess that's one of the excuses they use when bad stuff started to happen. They would say, oh, well, it's probably this dead dude coming back and messing everything up, you know. So I guess it was just an excuse.
Yeah, I sort of noticed too after reading and talking to, is that a lot of these people instead of blaming like something on the plague, which was spread by the fleas on rats, they would say, oh, it's vampires or so.
Yeah.
Because people just lacked a lot of knowledge back then.
Yeah. So that's what happened. They started panicking about this, and that's where the name came from, because they didn't call them vampires. They called them Nosferatus.
Nosferatu.
Yeah, and that's where the name comes from, which means, I guess, vampires now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so. You know what? And doing research on this topic, there's so much information, like, you know, of all these people, you know, through history that were just nuts, that, you know, that actually like would drink blood and stuff. But I actually watched a documentary where it wasn't even from that long ago, but in Africa they used to do that. Like when they would have battle, like against the enemy, they would drink their blood to supposedly get the power from the enemy. And I'm pretty sure a lot of places did that. I think even the who is it, the Aztecs, right? I think the Aztecs used to do that too, drink the blood of people.
They would sacrifice and remove the heart and drink the blood, because that's kind of like your life force.
Yeah. So anyway, Carlitos, what else did you find out about vampires, or the Nosferatus?
Well, we just talked about the vampires now, right? But I just did a little bit of basic research. What are like the undead, these vampires, and what do they have? What are they? And we all know that you know, a little bit of Dracula, right? He's the all-powerful being, right? Of these vampire things. But there were other ones before Dracula, besides the ones we just talked about.
Yeah.
And there's one called Vlad the Impaler, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what, Dracula. Well, Dracula is Vlad the Impaler. That's where the name comes from.
Okay.
But the whole story of vampires was pre Vlad. You know, it was before that. That's the whole thing of the people coming back to life and drinking blood. But that is, you know, Vlad the Impaler. He was the one that kind of what do you call it? Gave what's his name? The author Bram Stoker. The whole idea of you know, coming up with a name for his character in his book. So that's where that name comes from. But what did you find out about Vlad? Vlad the Impaler?
Nothing much, actually, because I just was trying to get some information from you. But what I remember from the past was that he was some sort of like a lord or landowner, right, in Europe, and he was trying to prevent, I guess, the invaders from the east to come into his property, and there was a lot of battles back and forth, right, from him going over to the east and them coming over to the west side, right, towards Europe, and these armies would just battle back and forth. Where he just, I don't know if he was already mad or he became mad that he just started taking the dead soldiers and putting their heads and their bodies on pikes to demonstrate how much he should be feared.
Yeah, and you know what? This is where the research part of this topic got really, really interesting and really fun for me, because you know I researched that character, the Vlad the Impaler, and what happened to him, it was that he was a prince. He was a prince of Wallachia, I think it was, which it was a small country that is now Romania, right next to Transylvania, and everything that ends with mania. But yeah, so he was a prince, And what happened was that his father was the ruler at the time, and they ended up assassinating his father, and they ended up blinding his brother that was next in line because he was Vlad the Third.
Oh, okay.
So they ended up killing the dad. They blinded the brother by sticking these hot things into his eyeballs or something, and
hot pokers.
Yeah, hot pokers. So then it was he had to take over, and when he took over, I guess he couldn't, he wasn't ready, so he ended up just ruling for like 3 months, and then he ran away, and what happened was that I guess I don't know how long he was gone for, but he was planning his revenge the whole time. And that's when he decided to come back, and I forgot who helped him. There was another small country that helped him, and he took over Wallachia. And so what he did, he got rid of some of the enemy, and there was one group of people that still, that was still left. So he ended up throwing a big like a party, and invited 500 people. Those 500 of those people to his like a palace, and I mean they didn't know, but the next day after the party, he ordered to have them all impaled, and that's where he got his name from. The Vlad the Impaler.
Okay.
Yeah, but so he had them impaled, and what he used to do, he would, he thought he was so, it went up to his head that he was the best, whatever. But anyways, what he would do to I guess scare the enemy and just scare anybody, the people, was that he would go and have his dinners where the bodies were impaled, and he would tell his his servants or soldiers to get some of the blood from the dead bodies, and he would dip his bread in it and eat the blood.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's strong.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy because that's how like we were saying, the Bram Stoker, that's where he got the name for his character in his book, the Dracula book. But I think that was the only thing that came from, like, his book that's the only thing that in his book that had something to do with Blood, the Impaler. Okay. Because he was looking for a name. Because I think when he wrote the book, it wasn't going to be called Dracula. It was going to be called the Book of the Undead or something. Mm-hmm. And that was the name of it. And the character that was going to play Dracula, he had some weird name that I'm glad he found the whole Dracula name. But yeah, so
something catchy.
Yeah, and the thing is, the reason he picked Dracula was because Vlad, his last name was Dracula. Well, actually, it wasn't even Dracula; it was Dracul, which was his father. His father was I forgot the first name, but the last name was Dracul, and the reason that Vlad had Dracula was because back then they would put an "a" at the end because that meant son of Dracul, so it was Dracula, and that's where the whole the Dracula name comes from, which was cool. I found that really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
kind of like in where is it, Ireland or Scottish tradition where they put son at the end, like Ericsson or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned Ireland because I'm drinking Guinness. I'm drinking Guinness because it's my favorite beer, and not only that, but because Bram Stoker was from Ireland, and he was from a small town next to Dublin, Ireland. So here's to you.
Yeah, and I'm drinking Pliny the Elder because it's really good beer.
There you go. That's another good reason.
But you know what, Tony?
Yes.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
I never drink Corona.
That's a good thing. You'll never get sick. Yeah,
a little undead, but not sick.
Yeah. And you know what? I think at the end of the video, we're going to be showing an actual found footage of a vampire, right? Is that Carlos found an actual found footage from a video that actually shows like a real vampire from back in the 90s?
1999, I believe. And this vampire was confused, and I don't know, somehow he got lost, and he was found at a bench, and stupid him, he woke up during the day. And
Don't tell him. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, if you want to watch that, wait till the end of the video. We're going to insert that video at the end. But now that we're talking about where the whole Dracula name came from, why don't we get into like the one of the most famous vampire books ever written, which was Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes. Yes.
Since we were talking about Vlad the Impaler. So what did you find out about there you go. What did you find out about? Did you do any research on Bram Stoker? Or?
Yes, a lot of movie watching.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I did some research on the author, and it's crazy because when he was young, I guess, his first like 7 years of when he was a kid, he was born with some kind of a disease where he was bedridden for 7 years. And I guess his mom would tell him all these stories of fairies and a lot of scary stories, which I think was what started working the gears and getting all that imagination running. And not only that, but did you know that during the time when he was born till I think he was like 10 years old, there was like a big, like some kind of plague. It was a potato something. People were dying of some disease they were getting from potatoes, I guess. Don't take my word for it. I'm not sure. But
famine.
Yeah, there was something going on. There was a plague going on, and so there was a lot of scary stories and stuff going on. So, anyways, after the first 7 years, something happened where the disease just kind of went away, and he was able to go outside and play. So, I guess so many people were dying that they started like making cemeteries all over the place. And right next to where the building where he lived, there was a cemetery of all the people that would commit suicide that were sick. And he would actually go into the cemetery and play, for hours. So, it's crazy. He had a very like a dark childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I think after that, what happened was he ended up getting married. He moved to London. He started working at a theater. He managed a theater, I think, right?
Oh, you're the man with the research. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, so he started managing a theater. But the thing is, once he started managing the theater and stuff, he started, getting into writing. And that's when he started, became an author. And I think the first book he wrote was a children's book of scary stories. Where and one of the stories he made was about his childhood with the plague, where there was like this ghostly giant that would come and just kill people and stuff. So yeah, so he had a lot of he did a lot of stuff. And not only that, what I found out that's crazy too was that it was during when he was doing the book in these books, it was during the time when Jack the Ripper. So a lot of people think that he got some of his ideas from that too, because Jack the Ripper would just kill victims at night, and he was like a shadow person and with a cape and all that stuff. So
mysterious, dark, alone,
and kill women.
Yeah, kill women. A predator.
Yeah. So he had a lot of stuff that a lot of things that he could get ideas from and to put into his book. And what I found funny was that he was sick for the first 7 years of his life, and it took him 7 years to write, to get all the information and write the book of Dracula.
Wow.
7 of 7.
Putting the code together.
I'm like Tom Hanks in that movie where he gets a code, the Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. There you go.
Yeah, but there was that. Then, well, you know what? What do you know about Bram Stoker, Carlitos? What did you find out?
Well, I haven't read the book, so I don't really know too much, and I just saw the movie.
Oh, okay.
I saw it years and years ago, but I saw it just recently.
Oh, okay, but you didn't look at any of like the process of the writing of the book or anything, or?
No.
Okay.
I just kept watching vampire movie after vampire movie.
Whatever works. You know what? One of the other things that he was inspired by was there was I don't know if I'm pretty sure you've heard about this. It was on the History Channel and all this. There was a woman, a queen, that she was from Romania too. And this was before actually Vlad the Impaler. And what happened with her was that she used to kill her. What are the servants? She would kill the servants and bathe in their blood, because she thought that if she bathed in the blood of the servants, the young women, that she would stay young forever.
Right.
So that was another one of the characters that he was inspired by. You know, this lady that, and I think she killed like 400 girls until she killed the wrong one, and then the people went nuts, and that's when it was basically over.
Right. Just like the more these people do it, the more they're going to get caught. And they're looking for that everlasting life essence, which is like they want to live forever, or the fountain of youth in this case, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? This was 200. I believe it was 200 years before Vlad the Impaler.
Okay.
And it's crazy because it was 200 years after her was Vlad, and then 200 years after Vlad was Bram Stoker. The code, the Matrix.
You need a map back there with the string on and everything.
But anyways, you know what? Let's get to the fun part of this video, which is talking about the films. Because we watched some really good movies and some really bad movies. But anyways, Carlos, let me stop talking for a while and let you take over for a while. What was one of the films you watched?
Well, the first one that I saw, I'm gonna probably go down this list right here. And the one that I like, but I know some people probably won't like it all because of its pace, and because it's not in color, would be this one right here, the original Dracula.
Oh yes, Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi as the the classic vampire look.
Yeah.
The large cape, the suit, and the classic hairstyle and everything.
Yeah.
And the reason why I watched this movie, but I didn't see it all the way through, is because we already know the story of Dracula.
Oh, so you didn't watch the whole thing?
Because it's pretty much the same story as Bram Stoker's and all the other Bram Stoker's and all the other ones that I've seen. I did see like the first probably 2/3 of it, and then I just kind of like got a little bit busy and had to let go of it. But it's pretty much the same premise. There's always the two sisters, Lucy and Nina, and there's Renfield.
Yeah.
And of course, Renfield has to go all the way to the top of the castle to get the signage, cuts his finger. So pretty much it's the same thing as all the parodies that you've seen already and all the other Dracula movies that you've seen.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I believe that this version of Dracula was the one that kind of changed the whole thing. Because I think before that, all vampires were kind of like ugly and monster looking, right? And he's the one that brought the kind of classy look to the whole vampire thing.
Yes. And unfortunately for me, I saw him backwards. I should have started with this movie first, because I should have known that. Because the other movie that I didn't quite see, but I saw it in this other film called, I believe it's, what was it called again?
The Shadow of the Vampire?
Yeah, it's Shadow of the Vampire. That's the one. And that one there, hold on, let me bring it up here. You see it right here? Mm-hmm. This one here, it's pretty much the one before Dracula, right?
Yeah.
This was supposed to be based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. This was played by William Dafoe.
Oh, okay.
But going back before we talk about this one, let's go back to regular Dracula. He's the one that brought back he's the one that brought out the whole classical Dracula, the nice dressed Drac with the cool hair and everything. But Nosferatu was the one where they couldn't get the rights right from Bram Stoker, so they had to create a whole new character, but with the same premise basically.
Yeah. And
instead of Count Dracula, they couldn't use that name, so they used the name Count Orlok.
Oh, okay.
And what's just really cool about this movie is that, which stars John Malkovich, Willem Dafoe, and I forget there's another good actor in there. Which stars in another movie called Blade. Anyways, this character played by Willem Dafoe is actually an actual vampire that gets hired by the director of the movie company to star in Bram Stoker's Nosferatu or Dracula, but in this case it's Nosferatu. Right? So it's a good movie, and I like the premise of it.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of Nosferatu, I can't believe we were talking about vampires and we didn't watch the original Nosferatu film. Wasn't that like a silent film, a silent movie?
It's a silent movie, yes.
Yeah, there's a poster right behind me of it. But yeah, you know what? I messed up. I should have watched that, the original one at least.
I think that my whole thing was I'm watching all these movies. I'm trying to cover all these bases, but for me, I would watch Nosferatu, have more time, and by watching this movie, I was like, okay, I think I already know what Nosferatu is about. Yeah. They kind of talk about a lot of it in the movie.
Yeah.
But this is it's not the greatest vampire movie, but it's cool how a vampire is playing the role of a vampire, and while the movie's being filmed, cast members are disappearing and dying and so forth. And
So is this like a backstory to Nosferatu?
yeah, in a way, it's a different take on
Okay.
the Nosferatu and the making of.
Okay. That's cool. I believe I watched this movie, but I don't remember. I guess it wasn't very. It didn't impress me very much. But I don't remember it.
It's not that impressive. And the sad thing too is it has a great cast, and there's another movie like that I want to talk about later on called Daybreakers also, which has a great cast too.
Oh
And
yeah.
it has certain things in it that I really like about it, and there's certain things that I kind of don't like about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the films that I watched that was kind of lame too. It wasn't very great. Was I actually went through my library collection of films, and I found a movie that was and you remember when when Elvira used to do the movie macabre kind of thing on the weekends, and they would show it was like a double feature kind of thing.
She'd be on that red velvet couch.
Yes, yes. Well, anyways, I have one of those films that has two vampire films, and I had never watched it. You know, I purchased it a long time ago, and I ended up watching it this week. It's called the Dracula, Count Dracula's Best Love or something.
Count Dracula's Best Love.
Yeah, and this was a film from Spain, so it's in Spanish, but it's dubbed in English. And I don't know if any of the viewers have watched this. It's actually pretty good. They did a really good job with the dubbing and stuff. But what got me on this film, you know, because the movie's like 2 hours long, the end of it was just so bad. It was just it was a big letdown. You know, I was like, when I finished watching, I was like, oh no, why did I waste 2 hours of my life? But you know what? The beginning was cool because they actually mentioned Vlad the Impaler. So there's a little bit of the true story of the real guy. But just the end was so terrible. And you know what? Spoilers for if you haven't watched this. The end of this film, I guess the whole point of the film was that Dracula was trying to bring his daughter back to life. He had a daughter, and she was killed, and so Dracula is trying to find yeah. Well, anyways, he tries to find a way to bring his daughter back to life. So what he does, he has to get a girl to fall in love with him without knowing that he's Dracula, and also get a virgin and do a ceremony where he's gonna mix their bloods. Oh, you sound really loud. There you go. You sound better. Oh, go ahead. So, anyways,
I just had to mute my microphone. There's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of activity.
Oh, it's fine. It sounds fine. So, what happened was that he had to do the ceremony and get the blood of the virgin and this girl together. So the whole process, the whole point of the movie was that to bring the daughter back. So he's jumping, hoops and doing all these crazy things to try to make this girl fall in love, find the virgin. He makes all these people. He turns all these people into vampires to help him. So then at the end, when it's time to bring his daughter back to life, the girl falls in love with him, and he's all like, he tells her finally, like, you know what? There's something I want to tell you. I'm a vampire, and I want you to be my bride, and I have a daughter, and I want to bring her back. Do you love me? And she's like, yeah, I love you, and everything. I'll do it. So then they do the whole ceremony, and they mix the blood, and the daughter's body starts turning back human. Anyways, last minute, the girl, the one that falls in love with Dracula, she decides that she doesn't want to be a vampire. So then Dracula's all like, but if you really love me and all that, she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So then he's all like, I guess my daughter's not coming back. Right? So then the daughter turns back into a skeleton.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I don't need all these vampires I created. I don't need them anymore. So screw them. Let them die in the sun. And then he gives the girl one more chance. She's like, you know what? Be my bride, please. I love you and all this. And she's like, I can't. I'm sorry. I don't want to be a vampire. So he's like, this was the hilarious part of the film. So what he does, he grabs a wooden stake and he's all like, well, I guess I guess this is the last and first time that Dracula ever fails, and he commits suicide. I was like, what?
No.
I was like, what? So he starts hammering this thing in, and the girl's out crying because she loves him and stuff. It made no sense at all, but anyways, yeah, so check that movie out if you guys want to watch it and see how bad it is. It's called Count Dracula's Best Love or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Terrible.
I accidentally put an image on the screen when you were talking because I accidentally dropped something here. But I was gonna ask you, is it worse? Is it worse than this movie later, or is it just?
Once Bitten. You know what? I never watched that.
No.
With Jim Carrey now.
This is Jim Carrey's first acting role, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or the first starring role, I believe.
Was it good?
Was it in this one? Yeah! 80s comedy vampire chase movie.
Okay.
Good for its time, but no, it's
well, you know what? The one I watched, it wasn't so bad. You know, throughout the whole movie, it builds up. You're like, okay, you're like, what's gonna happen? Is the daughter gonna come back? And what's the girl gonna decide? But the thing is that the end was such a letdown that it just kind of ruins the whole thing, you know. And even Elvira was like laughing at the end, like, oh, what the? I can't believe this. But shout out to Elvira.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, what other movie did you watch, Carlos?
Let's see. I'm gonna make my way down from
your list.
My little list here. Let's talk about this one. Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, yeah.
This one was a really good movie.
Yeah.
The great cast, great acting, the setting, the costumes, the vampires themselves, the way they made them up. Oh, beautiful.
And this movie has a very original story, right? Because it has nothing to do with Bram Stoker or anything.
This is actually Anne Rice. This is the other author.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
this movie was great. I remember watching this in theaters, and I was just like, my mind was just blown. I actually went to watch it, I think, like 3 or 4 times because it was that good, and I think it was like 3 hours long, right?
It's a very long movie, but it's really worth it because it's a good movie because you're always on your seat. I didn't get up once to go to the refrigerator or take any kind of breaks. I was just so engaged with it.
And you know what? When I watched this back in the day, I watched it with my friend George. Shout out to my friend George.
George.
We saw this in theaters. Well, the first time I watched it with him, and I remember people were like, when it finished, people were clapping because it was just that great. It was a great film. Who was it? We have Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise. We have Christian Bale. We have the girl from Spider-Man. What's her name?
Yeah, she plays Claudia. I forget her name. And Armand, Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas, yes.
Yes.
Antonio Banderas. Man, what a great cast. What a great film. The costumes, the writing on it, the cinematography, everything. 10 out of 10 on that film. You know what? This film is one of those films. I think that's my favorite vampire movie.
I think so too, because this captures that part of the vampire that is not just any other vampire where they suffer when they die, but the actual suffering that goes on in certain vampires because they have to drink the blood of humans.
Yeah.
They're alone. They need help. In case of Claudia, the little girl that turned into a vampire. She can never become a full woman. She's always wanted to become a full woman. She wants to cut her hair a different way. She's tired of dolls. She just wants to become old one day. And she's never going to get that. And
that's one of the crazy things about this film is that it has such a variety of characters, and everybody has their own thing going on, and it just works so well.
And there's Lestat, played by Tom Cruise, who is a controlling one that will not let Brad Pitt and Claudia go until Claudia gets a little mischievous. Yeah.
The whole thing with Brad Pitt not wanting to like kill people, and then like you said, the little girl wanting to be a grown up, and doesn't she fall in love with Brad Pitt at a point or something?
The little girl, it's like the whole vampire bonding thing where you're like a lover, a father, a mother, and a daughter, but it's not really like a sexual thing. It's
more like a romantic thing, right?
It's romanticizing it, exactly.
Yeah, what a great film. I gotta watch that. I didn't get to watch this film because I watched so many other bad films. I should have watched Interview with a Vampire.
It's great. The whole premise of it is that you're a distraught vampire. Your maker, which is maker to Lewis, which is played by Brad Pitt. His maker is Lestat, and his maker Lestat didn't tell anything to Brad Pitt's character about where they're from, who they are, where they're from, and what are they supposed to do. So that's why they go on to a voyage, him and Claudia, to Europe, and that's where they find Armand, played by Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
And from there, it's just awesomeness right there. Just a lot of action, backstory, action, and the escape is so good.
Yeah, this movie had it all. It had action, drama. There was some like funny scenes in it, and also like the romance. But I think one of the scenes in this film that like really like almost like shocking to me was there was a scene. I don't know if I'm remembering it correctly because I haven't watched this movie like in 15 years. But there was a scene where Tom Cruise is trying to encourage Brad Pitt to drink blood, right? And he gets this girl and puts her in a coffin, and the girl's just going nuts, like. And then like she's bleeding, and he's like, just do it. And he's like, no, I can't. And then finally Tom Cruise like grabs her and like kills her, right? Sucks her blood, kills her, and it's done. That scene just stuck in my head. But I mean, what a great film. Highly recommended. If you haven't watched Interview with a Vampire, turn this video off and go watch Interview with a Vampire. It's better than this video. It's better than this episode.
This is probably the best film right now. Probably the we're going to talk about today. And when it comes to the explanation of vampires and what they go through, emotional and whatever, it's just a really good movie.
Yeah,
everyone should see this before.
Yeah, so this was Anne Rice, right? Anne Rice, not
Yeah, Anne Rice.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
But
so what else do we have here? Let's move on to the next one.
Hey, you know what, Carlos? Why don't we right now go to show the video of that video found footage video of the vampire, because my computer is letting me know that it needs to be charged and I have to go get my charger. So we're gonna take a little break right here. You guys are
time out.
You guys are gonna. It's not gonna be a break for you, but a break for us. So let's go ahead and roll tape and let's see what you guys think about this found footage vampire video.
what's wrong? What's wrong? Rich, what's wrong, man? What's wrong with you? I had a dream. I was a vampire. I was burning. But you are a vampire. Ah!
And now we return to San Pedro Paranormal.
And we're back. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that that real vampire video.
That special vampire video.
Shout out to Chris and Richie.
Yes, and Edgar, and I'm the gorilla.
Oh, so Edgar helped you film this?
Yeah, he was the one that filmed.
He was the cameraman?
He was the cameraman.
Nice.
Of course, Chris is the vampire.
Nice.
I'm the gorilla in this thing, and Richie is the murdering Hillary Clinton in this one.
Anyway, shout out to you guys.
Yeah. 1999, so don't laugh. Well, laugh, actually. We enjoy the laughs.
Yeah. So why don't we get back to the films, the vampire films?
But before we go to the films, let's talk a little bit about actual real vampires in today's modern life.
Hey, before we go to the real actual vampires,
Yeah.
before I forget, I want to do a quick shout out to a local store here in San Pedro. It's called Halloween Screams on 6th. It's 355 West 6th Street here in San Pedro. And this is where I actually got this Count Dracula, this vampire right next to me. And you know what? I picked these up today because I wanted to do have some kind of prop here with us for the episode. But the owner of this store, let me see if I could find her name here. Oh man, I can't. Give me a second, guys. Her name is Darlene, and she's the owner of this shop. You know, this local shop here, Halloween Screams. And you know what? They do business year round. You know, they're not just gonna survive just by selling during Halloween. But she actually gave me these vampire teeth that are like they're like real teeth. You know, they're the real. You know, they look like normal. They have that yellowish color to them. And she gave me a really good deal on these and on the vampire too. So a quick shout out to Darlene from Halloween Screams here in San Pedro. So if anybody watching this video, you know, if you're a local here, you know, support the store. She's actually still doing sales just through what do they call that? Curbside pickup. Yeah. So just go to
and pick up what you need.
Yeah, go to Halloween. You know, go to the they have a Facebook page, and you could actually see all the stuff they have for sale. And she's doing really good deals right now because you know it's she's struggling to stay open. So hopefully it works out. Halloween Screams, 355 West 6th Street. Darlene, thank you, Darlene. Shout out.
Thank you, Darlene. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's get back to what did you want to talk about? The real vampire. Oh yes.
Well,
that's right.
Speaking of vampire teeth.
Speaking about real vampire teeth.
Yeah, real vampire teeth. Check this out. This is a lady in Mexico right here. Look at this one. You got the teeth, the piercings, the tattoos, everything there.
She went all out.
This is Maria Jose Cristerna. She's 35 years old. She's an attorney from Guadalajara, Mexico, and she's known as the Mexican vampire woman.
Damn, and she's like double vampire, right? Because she's a vampire like in the movies, but then she's an attorney too.
Yeah, she's gonna set you dry somehow.
That's crazy. You know what? I think I saw this on one of those Ripley's Believe It or Not, right? Was she in one of those shows?
Well, you know what? The funny thing is that she became so famous. Well, she started this because it was a fulfillment of her long-held fantasy. She's been wanting to do this for a long time. She's a big fan of vampires, and she wants to be immortal, right? Mm-hmm. But I guess Ripley's Believe It or Not, they actually casted her body, and they decided to put a wax figure in all of their little museums.
Oh, so you could see this in Hollywood. Uh-oh. I think we're having some technical difficulties right here, guys. Give us a second here. Give me 1 second. Carlos. Well, anyways, you know
It's
what?
pretty.
Oh, there you go. You got it kind of cut off there for a second.
Look at this figure. Again, it was a molded, an exact copy of her. It was a mold of her.
Okay.
And they decided to put it in all their museums there.
So you could go to Hollywood and take a picture with the mold.
Yeah, pretty cool,
That's
huh?
pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Well, yeah, you know
I
what?
also want to talk about this other little thing in I think it's in New Orleans, where pretty much now it's like the mecca of vampire culture, which is in New Orleans, and True Blood is based down in New Orleans
okay.
that area. And because there's a lot of things, a lot of mysterious things going on there. Vampires, voodoo, and so forth. Because there were a lot of slaves and a lot of different things going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to talk about here is the saber-tooth. It's called the saber-tooth clan, and this is a group of people that get together, and I believe every year or every once in a while they have these balls, kind of like people here have like the graduation or a winter ball. Well, they have these balls where people that want to be vampires come to, and they do little performances. They have on stage performances. They do all kinds of cool little tricks and shows.
So this
And they have
is
little rituals.
so this is like a vampire club.
It's like a vampire club, exactly. They dress. They have the owner. He's a dentist, or actually, yeah, he's the owner of the leader, but he's actually a dentist.
So
And he actually,
hey, so now that you say he's a dentist, did he do this just to make business?
probably, but it's a good side gig because he's the one that makes the custom fittings, the caps for
Figures.
a lot of people that are into the vampire culture. So he runs this little get together, and they have these parties, and there's a lot of cool little things that happen there. But one thing he does refrain from is sucking the blood of people, because he does not want any problems with people getting sick. There's problems with taking somebody else's blood. You have the problem with any kind of STDs, AIDS, HIV.
Yeah.
So he totally refrains from that kind of activity.
Yeah.
He says if you have to do that, do it with a consensual partner in your house, in your own place, in your own bed, whatever. But I just thought I'd mention that, so there's actually vampires out there walking around us.
Yeah. Well, it's
funny.
funny that you mentioned this, because I actually watched recently, I think like a month ago, there's a show that started, I don't know if you watch this, Carlos, with Captain Kirk. What's his name?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, there's a show on the History Channel with the guy that plays Captain Kirk on Star Trek, where he talks about all these mysteries and aliens, vampires, all that stuff. But they actually do a episode on vampires, and there's this guy in New Orleans, whatever, that he believes he's a vampire. And he looks nothing like a vampire. It's just some regular dude with a beard and long hair. And what he does, he pays people to go to his house. I mean, I'm not sure if he pays them, but they go to his house. They agree. They basically agree to, and I believe they have to sign something. And what he does, they'll come to his house, and he'll get like a surgical knife, and he'll poke them on their back. They actually show this on the show. Check this out. Check it out if you don't believe me. But he pokes them in the back of on the upper back with the surgical knife, and makes a couple, like 3 or 4, punctures, and then he'll like suck the blood out of them. Which to me just seems disgusting. It's like, really, really, who would agree to that? Somebody's saliva on cuts and stuff. That's not a vampire.
I'm gonna pay you to suck my blood from my back.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean, when you watch this episode, I mean, how much blood can you get out of that? It's like a little tiny, like 6 or 7 drops. And it's like, come on, dude, you're not a vampire. Who are you kidding?
Yeah.
It's just some crazy fantasy. But
that's all it is, just fantasy.
Yeah, and it's over there too in New Orleans. So It's crazy that you mentioned that. I guess that is the capital of vampires now. But yeah, but you know what? There was another thing they mentioned on this episode too, that they believe that I think it was the Vlad the Impaler, the original Dracula vampire, that they've actually seen him in this walking the streets of New Orleans. And
Wow.
there was a time when I guess there was a group of people, because you know they do a lot of what is it called when they do the whole thing with those necklaces,
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. And there was a lot of people, and they saw this guy dressed in black, and that he was like sniffing the air, and all of a sudden he just disappeared, like in front of everybody. So who knows?
Are you sure it was real, not fake? You sure it wasn't Vlad the imposter?
Hey, if Captain Kirk said it is true, it's true.
Oh yeah, by the way, his name is William Shatner.
William
Yeah, it just popped in
Shatner.
my head
Yes,
right now.
shout out to William Shatner.
William Shatner.
One of my favorite actors too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, we have that whole thing of the true vampires. But
Right.
yeah. Anyway, let's get back to film, because there's a couple of movies that I actually watched. That
Yeah.
I mean, they're not that great, but still. Did you watch any other movies, or was it that was that it?
I watched quite a bit, and I actually saw one of my favorite movies, which I do want to get more into, like a little technical side of things. And I have to admit, though, watching it recently, I kind of laughed at some of the special effects, especially the blood. It was just too much and too cartoony for CG for its time. But besides that, the martial arts, the weapons, just everything in this movie.
I know where you're going. You know what?
Yes,
That's also one of my favorite vampire movies.
Yes, and awesome soundtrack too. Here we go. And we're talking about Blade right here.
Wesley
The man.
Snipes. Wesley Snipes.
Yep,
Yeah.
Vampire Slayer. Blade came out from his mother, who was pregnant at the time, and she was bitten by a vampire. And right when she was bitten, she was converting over to a vampire, and he was born. So he got all of the vampire strengths and none of their weaknesses. That's what makes Blade very strong. He has their speed, their strength, and he can actually go into daylight. He doesn't burn. He doesn't have any problems with silver. Doesn't have any problems with garlic. It's just a pretty powerful character.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the original, just talking about Blade, how he doesn't die with the sunlight. In the original Bram Stoker's book, you know, Dracula, the sunlight wouldn't kill him.
Right, that's right.
All it did was lower his powers. That's basically what
Right,
it was.
it made him more human than anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so yeah, you know what, the Blade movies, I think this was one of the first movies that I watched about vampires where the vampire is just super cool. You know, that's what I liked about it. You know, the sunglasses, riding the motorcycle. It was kind of like it was kind of like a mixture of Dracula with the Matrix.
Dracula, the Matrix, super cool. They were dressed very edgy, and they weren't too like Twilight,
Yeah.
I shine like a diamond, and I'm like, oh.
But you know what's funny? Who made Blade? Who directed Blade? Because there's a lot of similarity to the Matrix. Because I remember they do a lot of like slow motion where he's like either like missing,
Yes.
like the bullet scene from the Matrix. Where
Right, there's bullet scenes. There's parts where that are sped up. In the movie, the chase scene, there's a lot of speeding up. There's a lot of rotoscoping. A lot of cameras are on a track, and it records all of the little slow images. And you have the 360 cams and all that good stuff. It's been probably, if it's not the same director, it's probably someone that produced it.
Yeah.
That did the Matrix is doing this too.
Yeah, and you know what?
And the thing I like about Blade the most, besides the martial arts, Wesley Snipes' character, and that he kicks vampire booty, is his weapons.
Oh yeah.
And in this world, the vampires, I think they have a reflection, I believe. They don't care about crucifixes. They don't work against them. But they put a scientific twist to everything, including the weapons. In this case, the sword is made out of some sort of special silver nitrate. Vampire blood is like it's the virtual, and it makes
Technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. Hopefully everything comes back soon. I think Carlos was
silver nitrate. You can actually make a little mace. Hello?
Sorry, dude. It's because you cut off a little bit, but no. Go ahead. Keep on going.
So they make this little mace thing with silver nitrate and garlic essence, which is liquid form of garlic, and that is used to spray like a pepper spray towards vampires.
Yeah.
And again, vampires are allergic to this and they die.
Yeah.
Later on in the series, and especially in the movies, they come out with these ultraviolet sunlight bombs, and
That's right.
It's all awesome. It just kicks butt.
Yeah, and you know what? I love the Blade film, the first one and the second one, because once I think the third one, once Ryan Reynolds came in, you know, it's kind of like, what's Ryan Reynolds doing? Nothing against Ryan Reynolds, because he was awesome in Deadpool. But before Deadpool, there was a lot of cheesiness. I don't know what he was thinking, but anyways, it was still good. It was still okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like the first and the second one.
Yeah.
So yeah, this character is in this movie is just one of my all-time favorite. The special effects, when it comes to the CG, they didn't age very well, but everything else, the martial arts is one of the best things out there.
Yeah.
The story's pretty strong too.
You know what? Talking about story, I actually did a little bit of research on getting back to Bram Stoker's Dracula. I actually looked for stuff, trying to find out what was the movie closest to the story, to the original, to the book, Bram Stoker's book. And shout out to Cinemassacre. You know who Cinemassacre is, right?
Yes, the angry video game nerd.
Yeah, angry video game. He reviews movies and video games and stuff. But he did a video where he compared all except I think it was spoofs, but regular vampire movie, the Dracula movies, and any kind of sequels he ignored. But the Dracula movies, he tried to find out which one was the one closest to the book of Bram Stoker. And I think the second place was the movie you watched with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that one got second place. But you know what? The movie that got the most the movie that got the most that got it the best to comparison to the book was the BBC version, which was a miniseries called, instead of calling it Dracula, it was called Count Dracula. And you know what? I tried to watch it, but it was just so boring.
Okay.
But it was still good. It was almost like the one with Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder, but just I don't know. I think because the budget was so low, that it just I don't know. I couldn't watch the whole thing, but I did want to mention that.
Maybe to that, their heart was intending to be as authentic or close to the book as they could.
Yeah. And
sometimes that doesn't translate very well to film. That's why things are changed over.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny? Now talking about that, how sometimes that's difficult. Did you know that Bram Stoker made no money off the Dracula book?
Really?
When he wrote this book, it was a flop. People didn't care. People didn't care for it, and he actually died poor. He was broke and poor, and he died in the streets. And then, I think in 1913 was when it was brought back to theater, and it revived the whole Bram Stoker's Dracula. But it's sad that happened, because it's such a good story.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways, another movie that I watched was the movie The Horror of Dracula, which was originally called Bram Stoker's Dracula. But there's 10 movies called Bram Stoker's Dracula.
No way.
Yeah, so this film they decided to change it up, and they ended up changing it to The Horror of Dracula, which is still Bram Stoker's Dracula. And this movie was actually really good. And this was with Christopher Lee. Very famous actor that's still... Is he gone? Did he die? Did he pass away?
He's passed away, I believe.
Yeah, he passed away recently. And yes, Carlitos is holding up the little... What is that, a bobblehead? Well, anyways, Christopher Lee played Count Dracula in those films. They were called the Hammer films, because they were from the Hammer Productions, Warner Brothers. But so he played Dracula in, I believe, 6 films, which was Horror of Dracula. Then there was the Return of Dracula, Dracula's Bride, and all these other films. But Carlos was showing the little figurine. He actually in the Star Wars prequels, right?
Yes.
He played Count Dooku, which was, I believe, an homage to his character of Dracula.
Right.
And you know what's funny? he played Count Dooku in Star Wars, and remember how Anakin Skywalker ends up like decapitating him, right? You know, did you know that the original Dracula, Vlad, Vlad Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, they decapitated him when they killed him.
Not only that, did you also notice? Because I'm a Star Wars fan. When they decapitate Count Dooku, he has two lightsabers in the form of a cross.
Yeah.
And then he slices like that.
Yeah. So it's crazy that the original Count, the Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, he was decapitated. And there's one thing I forgot to mention, Carlos. I don't know if you know this, but when they decapitated the original, Vlad the Impaler, he actually wanted to be buried under a church because he wanted his sins to be forgiven and all this stuff. So what's crazy was that, and I think this created a lot of kind of the whole folklore of the vampire. He was buried under where the priest would walk over, right? And that was to give him a blessing every time he walked over him. But in 1912, I believe, 1912 or 1913, they actually went there to dig out the bones or the remains or whatever. And guess what they found?
What?
They didn't find the remains of a human. They found animal bones.
What?
So that means he was never buried there.
Oh, wow.
So he might never have, maybe the whole story of him getting decapitated, maybe that never happened. Maybe he was just let go and whatever.
Or he turned into a bat.
They decapitated him, then they buried him, then he turned into a wolf or a bat or mist.
Headless bat.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Very entertaining. Entertaining.
Yeah, so I think I'm done with my part of the vampire stuff. Do you have anything else?
I'll just talk more about movies.
Okay, what else do you have?
Yeah.
This video might be like a little over an hour because we're, Oh yeah, Daybreakers, like the poster right behind you.
Right behind you.
Yeah, great movie.
Oh, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of good action.
Who was in this? It was Ethan
Hawke, William Dafoe again, and Sam Neill.
Okay. And
some of my.
Sorry, Carlos. If you hear dogs barking, that's because there's fireworks going on right now because of the whole 4th of July coming soon. So the dogs are going crazy outside.
That or there's a pack of werewolves outside waiting for you.
Yeah, but anyways, Daybreakers. I remember watching this in theaters. This was a pretty good movie. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't agree with this movie because a lot of the major cast that they had, they didn't really do a whole lot in this movie, which I kind of do agree with that. But I still love the characters. I still love the setting. It makes you wonder, what if? What if vampires have already taken over society? They run the world, and there's only a few humans remaining. In this case, there is a blood drought. Society, which is vampires in this case, are full of anxiety and fear, and they're mad because they're not getting as much blood as they require. And at the same time, this character, Ethan Hawke, is a vampire that is looking for answers. And he finds Willem Dafoe, who helps him become human again by doing a certain scientific experiment.
Oh, okay.
Willem Dafoe, I kind of relate to, not Willem Dafoe, but Ethan Hawke's character, I kind of relate to him kind of like Lewis's character in Interview with the Vampire, who doesn't really want to suck the blood or drain the life essence of humans. So I kind of get that same feeling on it. But what I do like about this is what we just talked about, the vampires ruling society, Ethan Hawke looking for the answers to become human again, and this humanity's struggle to stay alive, which it's very fascinating.
Yeah, I remember watching this and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was different, a whole different story.
Yeah.
But
it may not be the best vampire movie, but it's different. It's something to check out.
Yeah.
If you're a big vampire fan, I recommend it.
Yeah, it's really good. But you know what? There was another film that I watched, and this was the second film to that whole movie macabre with Elvira. And this one I do not recommend. If you like vampire movies, do not watch this. It was called Count Frankenstein.
Count Frankenstein.
Oh my God, what a bad movie. Terrible movie. This movie is about
like a hybrid, like a love thing where they have a baby and it's
I guess what they try to do in this film, they try to make a Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, be kind of like the Dracula, where he wants to have this romantic. He's like kind of a romantic, and what he does, he ends up finding some caveman, and he wants to make him human, so he transplants the brain and gets a girl's brain, and this movie's just a big mess. Do not watch it. That's all I gotta say about that movie.
It makes you appreciate all the other vampire movies.
Yeah, Carlos, but I think that's it. What do you have?
I got a classic one for you right here. If I know you want to talk about this one. Here you go. And we have Dracula Dead and Loving It.
The spoof. The Dracula spoof.
Leslie Nielsen.
Mel Brooks.
Yeah. Mel Brooks.
Oh yeah, Mel Brooks has always makes an appearance in this, right? Like he's one of the.
Oh yeah. He plays Van Helsing in this one, and he also directs, and it's his production company, I believe. Oh my God, this movie is so funny. I love Leslie Nielsen. I love Mel Brooks.
What's the name of the actor that plays Rainfield?
I know. I was just about to ask you that because I always forget his name. But he played in a few of the roles. He was in Ghostbusters too.
He was also in Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean also, and he plays a pretty good role in this, man. It's just like a lot of funny movie moments.
Funny. He's funny.
Yeah, we talked about the moment where Dracula is coming over from Transylvania. He's going over to the States, right? And he's in his casket in the ship, and Renfield has to stop the casket from going from one side to the other because the ship is tipping.
That's right.
So I just find this scene funny.
You know what I remember the most about this film was when I remember watching the trailer to this in theaters, and it's that scene where Leslie Nielsen is in the casket as Dracula.
Yeah.
And he's getting up, and then he bumps his head on something.
The lantern is way too low.
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, I remember also the first steak scene. He grabs a wooden stake, and he goes into the crypt down there, and he just goes and just smacks the stake into the heart of Lucy, which is the sister, right? And Mel Brooks is like, wait. Before you do that, let me go back here behind these pylons.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's like 50,000 gallons of blood or something.
Yeah, he keeps going, and just every time he goes, just 5 gallons come out, just gush.
That's right.
Then again. And the bats, I like how he turns into a bat, but sometimes he's so scared that Leslie Nielsen as Dracula. He turns into a bat, but he still has Leslie's face with bat ears and a bat body. And I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was a
and
good one.
His demise at the end is that they're battling Dracula at the end of the castle there in the attic. And in this movie, Renfield's such an idiot. He's like always messing up and making all kinds of problems. So the bat's fighting the sunlight in the attic because it's trying to get away from Van Helsing, and it flies up to the top. And one of the tiles, the rooftop, is opened up by Renfield. Come, master, I can save you, but he opens up the sunlight and he kills his own master.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that film. You want to watch a vampire film where you're gonna laugh? Watch this film.
Yeah, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, guys, but I think for today's episode we're done. I think we're done.
Yeah.
I think we talked about most of the films. I mean, there's tons and tons of vampire films. A lot of Lost Boys. The Lost Boys. Fright Night. There was the one we were talking about. What was it called? Monster Squad.
Yes, we're gonna talk about that one later on, though.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, we wanted to mention that we do want to probably going to be doing a lot of monster episodes. Like witches, Frankenstein, all this stuff. Because October's coming fast.
Oh yeah,
Halloween. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but is there anything you wanna plug, Carlos, or anything you wanna mention before we?
Yeah, I'm gonna put most of these links to some of these things that we discussed down in the description. Besides that, not much right now.
Yeah.
Tony, you have a chance to watch True Blood. At least the first couple of seasons, You'll think about it. You'll like it. There's a lot of naughty scenes though, so watch out for the naughty scenes.
Yeah.
Especially if you have kids around. But it's cool.
I'll try.
It's not Twilight.
I'll try. Yeah. As long as it's not like Twilight, because I can't watch
It's
that.
not. That's nothing like that.
Yeah, but anyways, a quick shout out again to Darlene from Halloween. Halloween Screams for the hookups with the vampire and the vampire teeth, and also to the cousins Chris, Richie, your brother, and Edgar for that found footage film.
Hopefully you guys found that amusing.
Yes. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I think like I said before, episode 22, I think we're gonna be doing witchcraft, right? Maybe. We'll see. We're not sure yet. But you don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, all the good stuff. And comment. You know what? I've noticed? We don't get very many comments on our videos. But comment if there's something you want to watch us either review or a topic that you would like us to make a episode on. Go ahead and comment on the bottom, and most likely we'll do it.
Oh yeah, we'll answer or send some sort of information back. Anything.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know what? We're pretty excited right now because we actually just surpassed 200 subscribers, which is a big deal to us. I remember when we started, we barely had like 10, 12 subscribers, and now it's like over 200. So
that's awesome, man.
We're happy about that. Yes. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of San Pedro Paranormal. And hopefully, hey, Carlitos, right now, when we finish this, you should insert that Grandpa Monster vampire dude.
I will. We'll do it right now, yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
San Pedro Paranormal.